Now the topic for today's webinar is integrated commerce with the Scribe Magento connector. And I'll give you an introduction to myself and my co-presenter here. I'm Paul Varley, Product Marketing Manager at Scribe, and I'm joined today by TJ McDowell. He's the EVP of Software Development at Datix. And if you're not familiar with Datix, they're Magento implementers and integrators. They're also a member of the Scribe Connector Development Program. And as such, they're very familiar with the Magento connector, and so I'll be relying on TJ quite a bit today to get into some of the details of how it works.
Hey, Paul. Happy to join you here.
Hey, thanks, TJ. Before we jump into the details, I want to just look a little bit at the size of the market. When we talk about e-commerce, there's a recent report from Forrester Research that's looking specifically at B2B e-commerce, and it's projecting that it'll be growing annually at more than 7%, and that by the year 2020, that B2B commerce is going to be twice as large as B2C commerce. And I think it's one of those things that may not be all that intuitive, because most of the time when we think of e-commerce, we think about B2C because that's most of where our experience is, things like Amazon.com. And so we may not realize that there's an awful lot of B2B commerce out there, and in fact it's even greater than the B2C commerce. And we'll get into a little bit of why that's important when we look at some of the key elements of leading e-commerce platforms. So when you think of e-commerce, you probably think first and foremost about shopping carts and online catalogs, but there's a lot more to it, especially when you look at the B2B flavor. And when we look at all the different aspects of e-commerce platforms, we can start to see why integration becomes so important for companies that are selling their products online. So when we think about online catalogs, you might need to get product information from an ERP system that's the master record for products. If you're doing promotions, you may need integration with a marketing system, something like Marketo or something like that. If you're doing any kind of fulfillment for order integration, you're going to be able to have orders flow from your e-commerce platform into those ERP systems and order management systems. You may have situations. Go ahead, TJ.
Hey, it's TJ here. So we actually see quite a bit of that type of stuff in terms of the integrated back-end requirements, and in fact, it kind of expands out what we think of in terms of e-commerce. So a lot of times, instead of just dollars flowing from a source to a destination and a product getting shipped out as is, kind of like we'd see maybe in an Amazon scenario, really in terms of a business, business to business, we're really seeing a lot of the workflow actually go through this e-commerce application, and so very similar to what you're saying here, that data, as it gets over quicker to, in our case, we deal with a lot of manufacturing, and so in the manufacturing scenario, there's customizability, and there's all kinds of options that can be included where there's likely an engineering component on the other end of that e-commerce application, and so being able to customize e-commerce and get that accurately over to the the actual manufacturing piece quicker allows those other the end client, the business that's ordering those, to be able to get those in their hands much quicker, and so it really acts more like a workflow solution a lot of times than just straight exchange of dollars to an actual end product.
Sure. I think that speaks to the next couple of things with personalized customer experience as well. If you have that capability to take a very complex order and handle it seamlessly, then you're going to be able to give your customers a much better experience, whether it's through a salesperson or through some kind of automatic configuration on a website or what have you. And then the last couple of examples here deal with getting the data out of your e-commerce system and into a machine learning system or an analytics system like business intelligence. You may want to extract that data and analyze it for future use in designing your customer experience. And so this is really where Scribe comes into the picture. Scribe offers an integration platform as a service called Scribe Online. And it's an integration platform that allows you to connect all of your different business systems together and design maps that show how your data is supposed to flow from one place to the other. So you can take your e-commerce platform, and today we're focusing on Magento, and quickly integrate it with your other business systems, whether it's ERP, CRM, marketing automation, databases. We've got all kinds of technology connectors, so if you're dealing with legacy applications, you could do XML or text files. There's just an enormous number of possibilities of things that you can flow through the Scribe iPaaS. And so you can really start to take your e-commerce platform and really automate a lot of the interaction that it has with a lot of those other systems. And with that, TJ, I was going to ask you to go ahead and tell us about one of the customers that you've worked with so that we can have sort of a working example here to think about.
Sure. So one of our recent Magento clients we did an integration for, it's called VersaTags. And what we had was an ERP integration into Magento. And that ERP, Epicor, is the actual ERP that we typically end up using and doing integrations for. In this case, they needed to be able to quickly advertise out different new parts that became available inside of Epicor into their Magento system. So, I think that especially in today's manufacturing world, as we're seeing so much quickness in terms of customizability of product and the ability to go from concept all the way, to actually turning something out and, to full shipment, that timeline has been greatly reduced. And so being able to get that product on the market and out for available for purchase quicker is definitely a big component. And that's what VersaTags did. We ended up doing this was a fairly simple integration, just to be able to push out just some basic part data, and these guys now have near real-time integration, being able to pull that in to Magento and advertise that out, and so very effectively allowed orders to go through their system quickly, and obviously increasing revenue as a result.
Great.
So
with that, why don't we go ahead and look at some of the use cases, some of the other use cases that might be common when we look at Magento integration. So the first one is one that I think you talked about a little bit earlier, TJ, with respect to order fulfillment.
Right. Yeah, this order fulfillment process, we see a lot of this, which is, not just product data being able to be advertised out, to Magento, but then Magento actually bringing back the order information, and whether that includes payment or doesn't include payment, is kind of dependent on the client. In our case, a lot of it, and I kind of referenced earlier, acts as more of a workflow solution, so that by handing along this request for fulfillment, we can more quickly get those orders in, start working those through the process of either distribution, manufacturing, or whatever that particular component is that business plays.
Sure.
Sure. A couple of the others, the shipping information, and again, we're thinking about everything from product ordering. How do we minimize someone having to have an actual touch in the system, so that we can maximize the efficiency? One of those components is shipping information, and so we can have an idea. Magento has built in shipping information that could be sent over, that could be same or different. Billing information, could be totally different. But just to be able to get that off quickly to the client, and be able to, without a need for an additional interaction with that client. So, having that shipping information flow over into whatever other system that you might have definitely reduces that time until it shows up on that end customer's doorstep.
Mm-hmm.
So, the product details, we kind of talked about that as well with the different variations of a product going back and forth. So this could even be, we have a lot of times revisions of parts. And, sometimes those revisions of parts may end up doing things like your weight may be different, or your, even stock. We talk about different stocks flowing back and forth. So whether something is in stock or out of stock and how many you have, some of that product data going back and forth allows, your e-commerce system to make intelligent decisions, based on, okay, well, if I'm going to ship this, how much does it weigh? And, in terms of availability, you don't really want necessarily clients to be able to put in an order of something that's out of stock. Might even be able to use maybe incentivize or kind of give customers like an encouragement to buy something quicker, only 5 left in stock or whatever. So there are various different ways that you can use product data as it's flowing back and forth as well.
Yeah, those are great examples. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the connector itself and the features that it has?
Sure. So it's a versatile connector. In terms of premise and cloud, either one's acceptable. As is the case in other connectors, the agent just needs to be able to hit whatever endpoint it is that it would expose out that API. So, whether you're hosting e-commerce in the cloud, which is a very common scenario, that tends to be very simple. You could even host Magento internally, though, maybe a good option for on-premise, or maybe your connected system is on-premise, and so it also has the ability to do that. So, again, information flowing either way in this connector, data in and data out, with common scenarios being around customers, stock items, products, orders, all those kinds of things that you would think about someone going in, adding something to a cart, and doing a checkout, all supported in this connector.
Mm-hmm.
So the other great thing here is in Magento, we very often see the need to do customization in terms of the data model, because what comes out of the box works in an independent scenario a lot of times for just your e-commerce. But as soon as you want to start integrating it, you realize there are other parts that you need to consider as well. And so you might be able to display custom information in terms of maybe your ERP order number is something that you actually care about inside of your e-commerce system. And again, we're talking about this B2B scenario. That business may know a significant amount about your business, and so you may need to advertise that out as a custom field. So those custom fields and entities are supported in the Magento connector, and you can just use those as you build in the support for those in Magento. So and then in addition, depending on how deep you want to go, with regards to the integration. Since Magento is an open system, you can add your own endpoints, your own code, to be able to actually enhance that integration even further, so that if you wanted to do custom logic inside of PHP, which is what Magento is written in, you could totally build out that function, expose it as an API endpoint, and the connector will also allow you to work with that.
Nice.
All right.
Well, you think you could, you think you could give us an example and show us what it looks like?
Sure, definitely. All right, so let me know when you guys can see my screen here.
Yep, see it now.
All right, perfect. So what we're looking at here is pulling in, and this is in that example we were talking about, the ability to pull in different part data into Magento. And so we've got parts that are coming out of our ERP, and then we end up doing it's a part to product, and so product being the Magento equivalent here. And so we do a quick lookup, and then if we don't find it, then we go ahead and do a create actually of that product inside of Magento. And so, and then the other part down here is, we're just going to indicate, hey, we actually have advertised out this part, and now the e-commerce system is aware of it, so we're not picking it up again. So, very simple map, but as you can tell, that it exposes out some powerful information in terms of product data flowing quickly down into your Magento system. And I think the simplicity is actually one of the things that's pretty awesome, is that you're looking at now a new product showing up inside of Magento, and it wouldn't have taken more than just a few minutes to put this map together, and I think having the ability to do the integration that quickly really will end up making this connector, completely invaluable to anybody who's interested in doing this kind of integration. We have a lot of integrations that are very complex, and this simplicity is just, just makes it, very easy for users to be up and running very quickly.
Right, and it's also very easy to understand what the map does. So if somebody else is coming in later and looking at it, it's very clear what's going on. So that's great.
Right. So I do want to show one other map as well. This is a little bit more complex map, and the block size is a little smaller here because the map's a little bigger. This is pulling data from Magento and going into Salesforce CRM. So in this case, what we're doing is we're pulling out orders from Magento, and then ultimately those orders are ending up inside of Salesforce. And so this could be, there could be various reasons why you'd want to pull things into CRM from Magento. In this case, reporting would be a good reason. Linking up some of that data, maybe a common data storage. A lot of companies, as you know, are using their CRMs really as XRM, and so the sky is the limit in terms of what they're doing. And their sales guys may wonder about in-stock status, and they may be wondering about market trends and those kinds of things. And so this is just an easy way to get that data out of Magento and into the CRM. So in this case, we're starting with that order. We're pulling in some supporting details, the billing and shipping address, as well as the customer. So all this is coming out of Magento. And then into Salesforce, we're doing an upsert of an account. So we're relating a customer to an account in Salesforce. We're actually doing a price book lookup in Salesforce and finding the default price book there. And then we're adding the order and each order item here and then we're associating that order item with its own price book in Salesforce. So this is again, a simple way to just sync that data over, be able to say, hey, we have this many orders that have come through for this item, and then also maybe do some customer analysis. It's great to have in the hands of your sales guys the ability to know what the order history has been for a particular client, so that they may be able to do repeat business with that customer, or they may be able to sell some things that are maybe supplementary to some of the purchases that they made inside that e-commerce system already.
Sure.
All right. And
all right, thanks for sharing that.
Sure, absolutely.
So I'm going to go back to my slides. Yeah, so as we kind of wrap it up here today, I wanted to summarize some of the advantages of integrated commerce platforms. And I think they really fall into three different categories. First of all, automation, and this is what we talked about a lot here today. If you can have your orders going directly from your e-commerce platform into your ERP, you can really streamline that order processing and fulfillment. You're going to have fewer errors, faster turnaround time for customers, and certainly improving the customer experience overall. In other ways that you could improve customer experience would include things like being able to display the order status for customers when they log in to Magento. You could see whether things have shipped and so forth. And that way you can really set your customer expectations up front at the beginning and then inform them as things go on between the time when they placed the order and when they received the product. And then for sales and marketing, you can really use a lot of the behavioral data that's inside of the e-commerce platform to really inform your sales and marketing tactics and do more effective selling once you understand what that behavior is. So things like what different products do people buy together. That might help you to recommend additional products when someone's looking at product X. You might want to suggest that product Y might be a good fit for that customer, and so forth. So I think there are a lot of different advantages to integrating your commerce platform with the rest of your back office systems. And before we take questions, which we'll do in just a moment here, I should point out that there is a free trial of Scribe Online available. You can go directly to our website, or you can follow the link there. If you're interested in trying out the Magento connector, I'd ask that you just send an email to sales@scribesoft.com, and we'll get you hooked up with that. And then I put the contact information for myself and TJ, so if you want to get in touch with either of us after this webinar, you're more than welcome to do so. Just send us an email, and we'll get back to you on that. So with that, I will go ahead and open up the questions and see what kind of questions we have from you folks today. Let's see. Give me just a moment. So the first question is, does this connector work with NetSuite? And I'll answer the question a little bit more generically. It's kind of course, NetSuite's included, but I'll say, does this connector work with X? And in general, if there's a connector on Scribe Online, just like we have one for NetSuite, the answer is going to be yes. You can use any two or more connectors together in a map. So if Scribe Online has a connector for NetSuite, of course you can integrate it with Magento or really anything else that's out there. Okay, the second question, does it support Magento 1.x or 2.x or both? Do you want to take that one,
yeah.
TJ?
Sure. So we do have Magento support for 1 and Magento 2, and so the behavior of the connectors is a little bit different between those two, but both platforms are supported.
Okay. And then I think this next question is related to that. Which Magento API does it use, SOAP or REST?
So primarily it uses REST, out of the box for both Magento 1 and Magento 2. And that the question is actually probably more relevant in terms of Magento 1, just because those endpoints, and I'm guessing this is likely where the question is coming from, the endpoints are different for SOAP and REST in Magento 1. So REST is what it uses for both.
Okay. And I think we may have covered this next question a little bit in the presentation, but I'll read it anyway just in case there's anything else we want to add. Does it work with custom Magento API endpoints? I've created a few in our Magento system to reveal custom objects or override existing objects. Will the connector be able to discover and use those endpoints?
Yes. So the connector does discover those endpoints. There is in Magento 1, and I'm kind of giving these answers because Magento 1 and Magento 2 are so different. But Magento, well, let me start with Magento 2 actually. Magento 2, there are ways to automatically discover fields, endpoints, all those kinds of things out of the box, similar to like a Swagger discovery. In Magento 1, though, that support is not out of the box, and so we have a small extension that you can add on that will allow that auto discovery in Magento 1.
Okay. Next question, would the connector enable a customer to see their specific product pricing using the connector and Magento 2?
So customer-specific pricing. So
yep.
That is that's a great question. The pricing can get a little bit tricky depending on what you're using in terms of pricing. So there are custom extensions, and we typically, whenever we do integrations in ERP, we've ended up finding that we've had to go, unfortunately, with a custom extension for price list and a lot of pricing information. So depending on what extensions are used and what's exposed out via the API, it may out of the box support that, or that may have to be something that requires a bit of tweaking to get that to work. But ultimately, there's not going to be things that the connector just flat out can't do. It's just a matter of how much work there is going to be involved to expose out the endpoints and data that would need to be referenced to get that to work.
Great. And I can answer this next question. In one of the slides, you had an arrow pointing to on-premise systems. Could I deploy this in Scribe Online but still connect it to an on-premise Microsoft Dynamics GP server? So the answer to that is yes. Scribe Online does have the capability to talk to on-premise systems. In fact, even behind a firewall, because you can install the Scribe Online agent on your own network. So even though you're configuring things and managing the integrations through the cloud, as you saw, TJ, with the web browser interface, those instructions are passed down to an agent that runs in your network and therefore can talk to the on-premise system. So absolutely, GP and other things that are on-premise are supported here. Okay, next question. I think there's a question about product categories. Will it sync categories from ERP to Magento?
So product categories, yes, those are supported depending on your ERP, and what kind of complexity you have with product categories there. If it's just simple and flat, it should be pretty easy. But yes, that should be supported. Yes.
Great. Okay, I think we have time for about one more question here. Let's see. Why should I use Scribe for this when I could have my own PHP developer do the work?
Sure. So I think that, especially in the Magento world, we do see a lot of integrations that are happening inside of Magento. So the source of them is inside of Magento. and that works great in certain scenarios. Maybe especially simple scenarios, but as soon as you start getting complex, there are a lot of gotchas in that integration, and those are lessons that as connector developers and as Magento implementers, we've learned and we've implemented those into the connector so that you're not going to run into those same things doing an integration from scratch. And then in addition to that, I think a huge benefit of the Scribe Online methodology is that it doesn't matter where your Magento architecture sits, or the actual server setup. So you could have Magento Cloud, you could have Magento whatever, and then we've already had a number of questions about, well, I've got part of it that's on-prem and part of it that's cloud. If your source of your integration is in the cloud, it's likely not going to be able to hit the on-premise component. So, complexity integration, lessons learned, and location of that integration or feasibility of that. And then in addition, a lot of times the platforms are, specific in terms of, you've got a PHP-based system, Unix-based system, running Magento, more than likely, and then that's going to hit a lot of times a Windows-based system, and just having those two be able to communicate seamlessly, speaks very well to the Scribe Online platform.
All right, well, that's about all the time we have. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you on the next Scribe webinar.